So with this external module, what we have for it, what it'll do for us, it'll automatically name records according to a custom scheme. So when we're thinking about a custom scheme, can you see my PowerPoint okay, everyone?
Yep.
Okay, so when we're thinking about a custom scheme, one of the things we want to think about is how is that data going to export? So, and naming records and record numbering are used interchangeably a lot. So that's another thing to look at. The per arm configuration is also another interchangeable term, and the way it's just described in the documentation. So the per arm configuration can be seen across the interface for per arm configuration, as well as a record name type. So I'll get into a little bit more of that as we go. And then the other thing that this thing is separates it from some of the other similar applications or excuse me, external modules is that it includes per DAG public survey links, where some of the other modules for auto record numbering and naming do not. And there's also one for DAGs, and I have those versions available as well. The one thing you want to keep in mind is that it's going to override. It's going to actually override your REDCap's built-in auto numbering scheme, which basically increments that from whatever start value you implement. So just keep in mind that the auto record generation and the custom record auto numbering are all different, as well as the auto DAGs, but they also include for some of the similar functions. And then using them interchangeably is also going to be, or excuse me, on the same project may cause some of the numbering defaults and or customizations not to respond correctly. So we want to take a look at those. And so test with that. That's going to be something to look at. I have that on the plate. Nevertheless, that's going to require a little bit more testing. For your project level configuration options, we have our record numbering, which our record numbering basically lists our 7 choices for selecting project-wide per arm DAG that we see here, per DAG, per arm and DAG, and or per arm DAG if used, and the additional DAG or field value if used. And we have, so the restrict DAG name format, provided a DAG is used, can be left blank, which inputs your prefix according to whatever DAG number you have applied to this module. So that's a consideration to keep in mind. And so when we look at it, and we can look at over maybe 112 different permutations of different record numbering conventions, if you will. And for our last item on our actual interface, we have information about DAG name format, and it's just regular text, which will support HTML. And we'll see that in our DAGs, provided they're being used. And I typed in here, so for us, any text entered here will be displayed on the DAGs, and that's where it's located. So you'll see your DAG page, which is located on your left under applications, and we'll see our notification here, or our instructions, whatever you want to include for anybody who's on the project and using your project for numbering. So as we look at our per arm settings, so I touched on this briefly earlier, is that we have per arm settings, and that's the global per arm setting that we see here. I have applied our record name type here to each one of these check boxes, and as they're applied, they will open up respectively. So these can also be reordered. So you can actually like put them in the order you wish that they would appear. And also, and that's per. So these, what I have set up here is I have a general, which is our general configuration, our interface. We have here our group comp, or this is just an arm that I established, as well as two additional arms in this example. But as we go through it, yes.
Go ahead and show.
As we go through it, we'll see that this can be customized, and that's where our per arm setting comes in. Over here we have a apply to all arms. You can select one. You're actually in your this checkbox is, I believe, is available through each tab. One of the things is that the if this is checked, it will apply evenly or equally across each arm. Unchecked will keep the arms independent of each other. So that's an important tidbit. This here is some of the documentation, or excuse me, or the naming and definitions and terms that we have for the functions. We have record number, wherein our record number is our record name type again, DAG, user supply, timestamp, and field value lookup. And some of the other items that are listed on the once checked are some of the other functions that would apply for a record name prefix. So your record name prefix will fall in place of any convention that you'll use, whether it's having a record number at the beginning, or whether it's having your record number at the end and with a suffix. So we have record name suffix and so forth. But I'll go back to our share screen for REDCap. Give me 1 second here.
The one thing I want to stress about this for people is, you saw a lot of material on those slides. The thing about this is, and I'll comment more after Michael's presentation, but this is one of the more powerful modules out there, and allows you to customize your record numbering. I mean, way over the top completely. And Michael, if you could hit the Control+ on your screen so it will make it a little bigger for everybody, that would be great. There you go. There you go. Thank you. That should be good right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for pointing out this. So here we are in our interface here for our custom record naming. You'll notice that it's already filled in, and this is another nuance that I noticed with the module. So when I don't know where this is housed. It may be on the back end, Terry. So
I don't know, but all you need to know is once you set up DAGs, then it will customize how the DAGs, how the records are numbered based on the DAGs, and you're going to configure that. So instead of right now, if you have DAGs, you'll notice that if you're doing auto numbering in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you'll get a dashed number for the DAG. But but that's so generic, and it doesn't really mean anything. And I think it appends it with the DAG number, which is just associated when you create the DAG. But if you wanted it to say something in particular, so for example, we've got a project getting ready to start, and there's 4 different sites across the United States. And if you wanted to be very clear about when you looked at a record or you created a record, that it was clear remember, so the sites are all over the place. And if you wanted to do an export and look at some data, and instead of just seeing 1, 2, 3, you wanted to see 1-Miami, 1-Baltimore, something along those lines, you could set up something that's very DAG specific for your naming convention. So, I mean, this is, like I said, the reason I wanted Michael to present this, although I have a lot of hesitancy about this, it's still so incredibly customizable that if you have the need for customizing your record numbering, I mean, this is the tool. So anyway, I'm sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Absolutely. So this is, as we see our interface, another thing to go further with this is we have our administrative options for export or import. And of importance is that it's using a JSON file extension for that. So whatever software you have available to read that in and then bring it back into the program will allow for pulling in tables or any type of schematic you have set up. And that's what I was kind of trying to explain here, is that we have data, or actually selections in here that reappeared after having disabling the module and then re-enabling it. So nevertheless, the settings that I have here are for DAG. I want to change those just to illustrate something. I don't have any, I should have had some records in the dashboard, but there are none. So we have, we're going from scratch here. We're going to go to, we can see here, I have DAGs enabled and we get this notification. This is another nuance. It's just because so the statement being data access group, that I must be in a valid data access group. So if I go to data access groups and I have in here a switcher along with everybody that's on the team here or viewing, we can see that I'm not assigned to a group. So say, for example, I want to assign Terry over to a group. He's already in, actually he's already in one, so he's already assigned, excuse me. So let's add Manuel to a switcher and then take a look at that. And similarly, we'll see that if we're looking at from Manuel's perspective, we can see that equally he's still getting that message. And so what I'll have to do is I'll have to go back into the interface, and then what we're doing here is we're gonna pull in some templates that I have created thus far, and then run another scenario for record naming. Here I'm using a project-wide setting, and use project-wide, imported, and we can see the initial items that I had, it was per DAG, and now it's changed. So it's been imported, but nevertheless, if we go down to the bottom, it's going to give us some of the regular expressions that are being used as a per DAG item and how you want to use that. But if we go to the bottom, we'll have to import, and then those changes will be executed. Once applied, we can go ahead and add our record. We can go to the dashboard or add edit records and add a new record. Say, for example, this is a study that we're working on, and we have a randomization scheme and so forth, and then we want to push them forward into a DAG or push them into a different group, we can do that from here. And nevertheless, once we apply that, we can see we have our record ID with a prefix being our location, or that's our prefix. Here's our suffix. And then you'll notice here, this is blank, but it's carrying over our numbering scheme. And if we go over to a separate arm, similarly, we can see that this has 8 digits and it's starting at 101. If we go over to back to our custom record naming and we take a look at what we have in, so this is our initial arm where we're going to randomize from. But if we use, say, for example, you wanted to start at 201, I don't know why you would do that, but nevertheless, it's possible, provided that you're using the right record name type, along with, from our general stance, our project wide. So project wide basically means it's going to number, and we look at our counter, it's going to number from 101 and occur incrementally. And so that's our unique record name. So, and again, so export is going to be important, especially if you're using per arm designation. So if we go over back to our record naming and we take a look at a separate scenario, I'll go ahead and choose another scenario that I have set up here for, this is going to be for per arm setting. And then now we'll be able to name per arm. Otherwise, if we're using a project wide, it's going to increment per arm incrementally from that number. And so it get at some point with a per arm setting. And so this here gets interesting just in the fact that I have used a regular expression. Now we have to use a case specific regular expression for your prompt, and then it's entered. And this is in the control, so we can still, and it actually preserves the record that was used prior. So this is let me see if I can explain this a little better for you. So this is our first arm we have here starting from 101. And so since I applied per arm setting, now we can number from 201 and so forth. So here, if we take a look at the settings for each respective arm, so I have so it starts at 201. This is going to start at 301, and this one's going to start at 401. And additionally, this is where I have that expression coming from. So if we're looking at our initial prompt, that was for Smith, and that's where that appears. So that's a user supplied name and format in the form of a regular expression. Here we have our 0 pad number record number for digits, and that's how this is implemented and where our first record number starts. But if we take a look,
Michael,
yeah,
those formats that you were just showing that you imported, were those ones that you created and then exported and saved?
pardon?
Or where did you get those?
Yes, those are templates that I exported and saved. That's correct.
Right. Okay. I just want people to be clear about where you got those. They didn't just come out of air. He first created those configurations for a project, then saved it so that it could be reused in a different project, and you could just import them. So like if you like how you set up a certain project, once you like it, then you can export these settings. And then when you get your new project, you can import them in and then start using them right off. You don't have to reconfigure it all over again. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's configured according to that template, and then they all have the same convention for timestamp, user supplied, and record number for record name type. Otherwise,
so you can see for that record name type, checking those boxes or unchecking. I mean, all the flexibility that you have in adding those to your record ID, which again, let's go for another 5 minutes or so, because then I want to talk about this whole module a little bit more.
Okay, sure. Yes. So the last thing I wanted to point out was just the difference between your counters. So that's going to be important because you have independent numbering capabilities in your counter as well. And so here we have anywhere there was a record applied, we have a counter. So if I apply an additional record to each arm, their respective counter would apply. So you would see, as I showed you, the 301 and the 401 here, and that's where they would start. If you reset it, I could set this to 1, and then what takes place there is that any additional records in the whole project, even by arm, would change. So that convention changes as well. So those are just little things that we don't want to do, but nevertheless, that's kind of the way I try to approach these external modules, is just incrementally see what works and what doesn't, and then come back and then apply them. But anything else that we can apply here would be through our general or global setting or interface. So we have per DAG, per arm and DAG, and then again per DAG and field. I'd like to see if we can apply a per arm and DAG or field if used, and then go from there. Let me see. So we have excuse me. It's just taking a little while to load. Dashboard.
You want to
Go ahead.
You want to just make sure that people see where you got the USA 23, February 23rd.
Sure. So that's back in our configuration options. So we have that's a prefix, and then our timestamp or our date is coming from. So if we're looking at this one, we have here USA, and then we have our date timestamp along with our user supplied expression, and then again here's our suffix. But this here is a record name separator, and that will be applied to each independent record name type that is being implemented. So that's important to point out. So if we go back to our record status dashboard, that's what we're seeing here. And you can use commas or expressions, but I think they're more so delimiters. But nevertheless, this, I think,
okay, can I ask?
I can cover for that, Mr. Terry Smith. I think there's I mean, for now, that the one thing that should be tested is using it with other external modules, I believe. And then also the regular expressions being what we see in our system here for any user supplied regular expression. I'd like to show you the way that looks when it's formatted. So that'd be the last thing. So what it is we have, one second, maybe have some import settings. And what I did was I built a tibble, and what we have here is each category, as I labeled them, for each function, and then their definitions and what they are, and then some of the formatting for it as it appears. The regular expression is something to look at, and that's used for your lookup description, or as well as your filters, and that's going to use some form of logic for it. So that's through this line 16 here, where we can apply our regular expression and or logic to call on any of these items for numbering. And additionally, we have what we have here is record RCCRN. I want to say about that is it's going to be your record number. Excuse me, actually no, I take that back. This is great expression. Yeah, I take that back. So this is going to be something else. For regular expressions, for record name type, what you would enter in your syntax would be, or your coding would be the for record numbers an R, for timestamp as a T, for DAG is going to be a G, and you just apply a U, and then field lookup values an F. That's what exports. This is how it would appear in the export. But nevertheless, my nerves have got the best of me, and I'll pass it over to you, Mr. Terry.
All right, now I want you to go back to the record status dashboard, please.
Okay.
First, I want to thank Michael for displaying this, because as you can see, I wanted him to show you all the capabilities, of which there are many, and I'm not sure how. It's not my goal really to figure out how you're going to use them, as much as give you tools to create things in a way that works best for you. Now, I liked that he built this massive record ID so that I could talk about this for a couple minutes. The point of the record ID should be something that can be de-identified, or de-identified yet with some flag to you about where this data is coming from. This is just way over the top. I want to remind you that if you need to see information like this, and Michael, if you would go to the project setup, he and I talked about this yesterday. If you go to the project setup and yeah, go down a little bit to the additional customizations, and we look at that first, set a custom record label. Okay, so this is something that we do in beginners class, creating sort of an alias that shows up when you look at a report, or when you look at your record status dashboard. It will show you like a name of the person, but that name is a label. it's not the record number. The record is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 because the auto numbering is set up, but the label is there to assist you with any aspect of what you want to know when you glance at that record status dashboard or you look at your report. Okay, so understand the difference. Think of when you want to export your data. What do you want to carry with you? You can cancel that now, Michael, please.
Okay.
What do you want to carry? That we've had these situations where there are studies that have wanted to use a site ID, and some people want to use the site ID in place of the record ID. I mean, all of that is possible, especially with a tool like this. You can start creating record numbers that match your site IDs. But on the other hand, we have projects where the site ID is not created till after the fact. So I always like to recommend that if you're going to have a second ID for a record, that you create a second field. And if that field, the format for that site ID, let's say, or whatever, is built off of certain parameters, like you need to prepend it with the DAG or do something, you can create calculated fields that will build that site ID for you. You can concatenate text, you can put it all together and build it once you add the standard record ID of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what we showed here gives you the ability to be really flexible with creating that record ID. It's meant to be very helpful to you, but I would just say take care on how crazy you go with it, because as Michael was just showing you real quickly there, when he exported out that Excel spreadsheet, that's an enormous record ID, and the way it's set up could, in theory, show some kind of PHI, depending on how you set your custom ID up. So be careful about all of that, is all I'm trying to say. I still advocate best practice is to stick with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but there are these situations, especially when you have DAGs and you want to customize how the DAG is shown, that this tool may be very friendly for you.